So in case you couldn't tell by the shirt, I'm here reviewing Top Gun Maverick. I'm just kidding, fuck that movie.
I think you've had enough tea for today. Let's get you out of here, Buzz.
Don't you get it? You see the hat? I am Mrs. Nesbit.
I'm here reviewing the new Disney Pixar movie Lightyear, which is basically about the toy in Toy Story, or at least what the toy of Buzz Lightyear was based off of. As if you remember correctly, Lightyear was Andy's favorite movie, the owner of the toys. And this is that movie. It says that right at the beginning of the movie. In 1995, this was Andy's favorite movie, something like that, something or the other. Basically is telling you this is the movie he watched. I thought it would have been cool if it showed Andy playing with the toys and then he sat down and watched the movie himself. But in the end, I get it. You don't really need to add that in there. It's kind of already insinuated as to what it was. And, you know, my expectations for this thing were kind of high. I mean, when it comes to Disney Pixar movies, they do a good job. And, you know, I think if anybody was going into this expecting it to be like Toy Story, then I think you kind of have the wrong idea going in here. This is the actual person Buzz Lightyear. This isn't the toy Buzz Lightyear. So a lot of the characters that you see in Toy Story, you're not necessarily going to see in this movie. And I gotta say, I was skeptical as to how Chris Evans was going to do Buzz Lightyear, but he kind of won me over. I mean, yeah, did I miss Tim Allen doing it? Sure, I did, but I feel like Chris Evans was playing a younger version of it, and I guess sort of a different version of it, whereas, you know, sometimes if you've ever bought a toy from a movie and it talks, you'll realize it doesn't always sound the same as it did in the movie, so it kind of makes sense. But even Chris Evans put like his Tim Allen mannerisms on it in some places. Like, it wasn't fully there, but you can definitely tell he was at least trying to not only make the Buzz Lightyear voice his own, but kind of pay homage to Tim Allen and where he had it. And the movie starts out, his Space Ranger crew ends up getting stranded on this planet, and he tries to, you know, get everything into hyperspace so they can go and leave this highly dangerous planet. And it ended up failing the first time. He had been gone for 4 years, because when you mess with hyperspace, you mess with the space-time continuum and all that kind of stuff. And it got to a point where he was just going to give up and all this, but his partner Hawthorne says, no, we don't give up. We're Space Rangers. We do it until the mission is complete. So he just kept doing it and doing it and doing it, and it finally got to a point where he was so far in the future that Hawthorne was dead, obviously of old age, and now it's getting to a point where her granddaughter is going to start coming into the picture, and we eventually get there at one point, and we find out that Hawthorne's granddaughter isn't really like her. She's scared of space. She's not even close to being a space ranger. And it just kind of, when you have a family member who is in this business for a long time and they had a generation, like their father or their mother was doing that before them, and their father and their mother were doing that before them, and then you kind of come into the picture and you're expected to take over, do good things, and here you are just kind of sitting like, yeah, this isn't working out. That's what Hawthorne's granddaughter basically was at. She was trying, but she could never get over her fear of space, and she could never really get through the training portion to at least become a rookie in the Space Ranger field. Around this time, too, we find out that Zurg has entered the picture as these giant robots. They just go around, they say Zurg all the time, and they're looking for Buzz Lightyear himself. And here's where I'm like, okay, cool, this is where we're gonna see what Zurg is made of, because, I mean, from Toy Story, we know that Zurg is Buzz Lightyear's biggest enemy, and we're just thinking maybe he's kind of like this Darth Vader type. He's a guy in a robot, you know, costume kind of thing, which I guess when I get to that point, I'm not wrong, but it definitely takes a turn for the worst, and that twist actually really pissed me off. But again, we'll get there. Throughout this time, he's trying to, you know, get the fuel for the hyperspace. It's like a certain amount of fuel it takes to get everything back on track. He eventually gets there, but he has trouble and taking off and stuff like that, because with the Zurg ship after them, they can't really hide from it, so they have to destroy the ship, they have to destroy Zurg, and they have to get to the space station so they can, you know, launch the big, I think they called it turnip, their ship looks like a turnip, out of there to get everybody home. and all this interference is taking place. Throughout this time, we get introduced to a convict who is basically doing it Suicide Squad style. I don't know why they decided to do that. I mean, it's cool, it's fine, it's funny, because she's basically a convict who is out on parole, and she's doing these missions to get a lesser sentence. And again, that's just basically what DC does with their Suicide Squad. And then of course you got the clumsy guy who just kind of goes around, he doesn't know what he's doing, he didn't realize what he signed up for, and of course he's not really good at anything until the end of the movie when he actually becomes helpful and useful and starts realizing that maybe he can do this. I mean, that's everybody in this movie. You know, I think everybody starts out inexperienced and clumsy, but by the end they really start to, you know, pick things up. And throughout this time, Buzz has to really tell himself, like, can I really do this by myself, or do I really need help? Because in this movie you'll find out that Buzz Lightyear hates rookies, and he hates autopilot, which they call Ivan. I can't remember specifically what Ivan stood for, but it stood for something, and that's why they called it Ivan. But by the end of the movie, it's autopilot that saves him, and a bunch of rookies who end up helping him get past Zurg, and eventually he does technically find a way to get back home to Earth. But what happens next is the twist of all twists, and this is where the big spoiler comes in, and the thing that really just upset me. Like, the whole movie is great, but this one portion is what really got me up in arms, like, this whole time. So we're told that Zurg is Buzz Lightyear's biggest enemy, as I mentioned, and, you know, I just thought he was this guy who had some sort of grudge against Buzz Lightyear. But what we find out in this movie is that Zurg was just Buzz Lightyear himself.
What the shit?
You're probably asking how, and I get it, I understand. When Buzz Lightyear gets to that point in his, you know, hyperspace trips where his former partner has passed away, there's this new guy called, I think his name is Burnside, that comes in and takes over, and he basically says the mission's over, we're not doing this, so Buzz has to sneak onto the ship, keep doing the hyperspace thing so he can go even more forward in time. We find out that the Buzz we've been seeing was never caught by that guy, whereas the Buzz we're seeing now, he's all old and aged. He was caught by that guy, but he ended up getting away, and he went so far into hyperspace that now he's just this old dude who aged, and he just wants to, at this point, he wants to go back in time so he can just fix everything and not have this happen, whereas the current Buzz that we've been seeing realizes, like, you know, it's not so bad. I don't have to go back in time because my former partner, she lived her life here, even though I would have loved her to have lived it on Earth all these years. She created, or we created, this colony together. She lived life, she ended up getting married. This is also something I wanted to talk about real quick, because his former partner, Hawthorne, is in a same-sex relationship. She, I don't know if it's just lesbian, bisexual, whatever, but she gets married to a woman, and people were freaking out before this movie was even out because there was a same-sex kiss in it, and it didn't really bother me from when I heard it, but apparently it bothered a lot of people, and when you go and see the movie, you'll realize that this is just like a quick peck. Like, I think it's her and her partner, when their son is graduating from high school, you know, they just kind of turn to each other and, mwah, you know, that type of thing. It wasn't like they were making out or tongue kissing each other, you know. It's just like, people need to start getting over themselves with that. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was like a split second in the movie, and that's basically it. People kiss each other in congratulations all the time. I'm not saying it's like a common thing, but people will do it, and even some people of the same sex, they do it in different countries sometimes, so I don't see what the big deal is. I think it's just people made a big deal more because it was a gay couple, as opposed to just, oh, you know, two friends, you know, did a quick kiss, or, you know, maybe two siblings did a quick kiss like that. Like, that's all it was. It was nothing to freak out over, so people were definitely overreacting to that, and I really don't think it's that big of a deal, and if it's that big of a deal to you, well, then you have a problem. They had a child, and her child had a child, which is now where we're at with her granddaughter. So, you know, it's basically, at this point, why take that all away from her? She experienced happiness, and he didn't want to take that away from her. So he ends up kind of fighting himself in the Zurg costume, and eventually is when we get the epicness of he ejects from the spaceship seat, gets the wings that we've all known from Buzz Lightyear, and him and his team single-handedly take Zurg down by basically blowing him up, blowing the ship up, And now the fuel he needs for the hyperspace is also blown up, as it was also on the ship. But by the end of that movie, Buzz is like, yeah, the hyperspace fuel's gone, but I don't want to go home because this is starting to be my home. And he really starts, connecting with the younger group. And we see this Burnside guy come in, and just when you think he's going to arrest all of them, they actually want Buzz to start like this protective agency type thing. And he ends up doing it, and he got to pick who he wanted to be as a part of his group. And of course, he picked the 3 misfits, or should I say 4, because he has this robotic cat named Socks to do all these missions with him, and that's where the movie ends. This movie, again, I thought was nice. For a Pixar movie, I guess it is what you were supposed to expect. I do like the characters in this movie. Obviously, there's Buzz Lightyear, and then there's Hawthorne's granddaughter, who I think, her arc definitely gets better. She goes from a wannabe space ranger who's scared of space and can't really do much of anything to someone who starts to think like her grandmother's, becoming way smarter, and she ends up getting through her fear of space and saving Buzz's life, essentially. We have the convict, who is now not a after all that, her criminal history was wiped clean, and she's basically seen as a hero. And the clumsy guy, as I mentioned, he kind of becomes still clumsy, but his clumsiness ends up helping the group in the end as opposed to hurting them. And then, of course, this robotic cat Socks. Basically, how Buzz got him was Hawthorne originally, when Buzz came back from his hyperspace trip, he was supposed to be like an emotional support cat type thing, and every time Buzz left, that cat would always be there waiting for him. It was like his partner in crime. Basically, if you watch the movie, it's like his R2-D2. That cat does the same things that R2-D2 does. Granted, he can talk, but he does the beep boop beep.
Beep boop. Could you hold on to this bag?
He can, control things with the little, arm thing that he's got and all this kind of stuff. He's got gadgets like R2-D2, so it was pretty interesting to see all the Star Wars references, because then there was this point where Hawthorne's granddaughter was cutting through the door. That kind of reminded me of Episode 1 when Qui-Gon Jinn's taking his lightsaber and just doing that. There's a bunch of obvious Toy Story references, as Buzz says a lot of his well-known phrases from the movie, like "not today, Zurg," "are you mocking me," this, that, and the other. I caught on to that pretty quick, because that happens, a lot of it happens pretty early in the movie, but by the end, we start to see where those catchphrases come from, and, I think it pays homage to the movie about the toy very, very nicely. Overall, when I look at it, how is it to par with the Toy Story movies? Because the first 2 Toy Story movies are classics. The third one's the worst, and then the fourth one, it picks it up, but it still doesn't live up to the hype of the first 2 movies, obviously. But I think overall, when you look at the original 4 Toy Story movies, they're great. This is the first series, or one of the few series, I should say, where it has more than 2 movies, and it's near perfect. And with Lightyear, you don't really put that in with any one of these movies. I mean, I guess you're supposed to, because this is the movie that Andy watched, so it's if you watch this first and then watch the Toy Story movies, you'll have more of an understanding. But this is its own thing. It's kind of like DC with their Joker movie. Even though that's getting a sequel now, it's its own thing. It's not connected to any universe. It wasn't supposed to be. It just kind of gives you an origin story that's kind of needed, so we can see how the character became the character that we've all known. And now we know why the toy is the way he is too, because, well, he's basically got the same personality as the person the toy is based off of. So yeah, it's a nice family movie. That's all I really gotta say. I would definitely recommend this. It's not perfect by all means. Like I said, that twist really got me, but I enjoyed pretty much every single minute of it when I was watching it, because it's just my childhood coming to life. I've always wondered, what's this toy based off of, and why can't we see that? I mean, I know we had the little animated series back in the day, but part of me was we need a film. We need to see the actual Space Ranger thing come into play, because in the cartoon it was Buzz Lightyear around a bunch of aliens and stuff, and that's kind of what this movie was too, but it was never really an origin story. It was just kind of this is what the non-toy Buzz Lightyear is. It never really showed his start and how he got to where he got to, but this movie does that very well, and I can say for a fact that it is one of the better movies that I've seen this year. And I haven't seen a whole lot. You know, I definitely would put this up there with the Batman and then this, because those have been the two movies that from start to finish this year have really just really wowed me into what they've been able to do. So we'll see where it falls at the end of the year, however. But I don't see me falling out of love with this thing, and heck, I mean, eventually I'll get over that twist. Like, it's stupid, it's dumb, but I'll get over it eventually. I think it's trying to play off of that thing where even though Buzz is the hero that he sees himself as, he can also be the villain at some point in time because he only thinks about himself and not the others, so I kind of get it there. But this whole time, you mean to tell me that Zurg was just old Buzz Lightyear? Like, that was just one of the things where I was like, wait a minute, stop. Hold everything you're doing. What? But yeah, that's my thoughts on this movie. You can tell me in the comments below, what did you think if you've seen it? Yeah, stay safe out there, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and I will catch you all in the next one.